And congratulations on Synthesis. It's a beautiful album.
Thank you.
My name is Matt Oshinsky. I'm the music editor at Paste Magazine, and we are helping to put on this event tonight for you guys and get a first listen at Synthesis. And it was an amazing listen. I think everyone agrees. The work that you put into, the dedication you clearly have to your songs going back years stays with you in a way. And, that's something that I was immediately curious about. It's rare that, when I'm talking to musicians, they are talking about songs that have been with them their whole career.
Right.
And when you come back to these kinds of songs, is there, do you still feel the way you did when you were first recording them? When you come back to them, are they still sort of fresh in your mind? I mean, these are songs you perform all the time.
They're all different because, it's from the span of like some of the earliest things that we ever wrote under the idea of Evanescence. And then a lot of the songs are actually from our last album, which I love. I still feel just super connected to our last album that we put out in a lot of ways. So I have a different feeling about each of them.
Yeah.
But for anything to make it onto this project for me, like one of the things about it had to be like staying power in my heart, like something that I still love. But the way that I felt when I was first recording them, no, like so much has changed. Totally different approach, totally different feelings about most of them, especially the really old ones. I remember going in to record Bring Me to Life. There was so much pressure and drama and like fear and insecurity and newness and excitement and amazingness and just every big feeling at once, to the point that I could barely function. Like I remember singing and just trying to still find kind of what I thought my identity was as a singer. Yeah. And not even really realizing that. I was 20. So to now be able to, after everything that we've been through, it's all already happened, and we have all this history with these songs and with the people that we've met and their feelings about these songs. It just gives it a new weight, a new gravity, and the meaning is actually grown into something completely else. Like, it means more to me now than it ever did before. It's such a big part of my life.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So it feels really good. It feels really nice to be able to show that those songs still have a current living life, that just it's not just frozen in time. Bring Me to Life, it's not just that one recording. There's so much that's happened since then through us playing live and everything else that's happened over the years, that it's nice to show it now. I mean, just to do it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of like the title of the album is Synthesis, and as I was listening to it, I guess what I took from that on a surface level anyway is sort of the marriage of the very organic and analog,
right.
orchestral,
Yeah.
and then the programmed beats and the electronics,
Right.
which is something that you've always kind of weaved through your music through the years. Is that sort of what you were thinking when you made the album?
That is the basic idea of the title of everything, Synthesis. It's about those two kind of seemingly opposite things, like marrying together in a very beautiful way, where it's not all about contrast. Actually, it's about them working together. Part of that being able to happen has to do with David Campbell, who is very forward-thinking artist. He's incredible. Like, his mind does things where sometimes I'm like, I don't even know what you mean. Like, I want to hear it, but I don't totally. And then you're like, oh wow. Like, I feel like this whole thing has been it always is like educational for me, but this one especially, getting to work on such a long-term level and like ground up level with him was really just good for me. I feel very awesome about that. I'm very proud of that. But he gets into that programming stuff. Like, he likes that kind of music. He's not just this stuffy classical guy that only likes score and orchestra. Like, he loves cool, interesting music using sounds that you wouldn't normally expect would be a part of music. Like, it's just very creative. So since we were working on it together from the beginning, Will would have some programming idea and some sample thing happening, and then David would hear that and go, oh, well, what if the woodwinds like pulse back and forth and left and right, and it creates that tension that you're doing in the on that arpeggiator, and like we'll make that go hand in hand with something that's actually living live in the orchestra, to a point where the stuff is very blended in a really cool way that could only have happened through that collaboration.
Yeah, it's seamless. I mean, it sounds seamless on the record. And so, I'm wondering, when you're putting these tracks together and you have these sort of, in some ways, disparate sounds, you have this incredible orchestra and you have these electronics, which is one usually the foundation and the other kind of fills in, or do you build from one spot to another? How do they sort of come together as you're creating these tracks?
I wanted everything to have its own moment to shine on this. So instead of it just being like building stuff on top of the songs that we've already have, that you guys have already heard, instead, a lot of it was actually subtractive. A lot of it was about moving things aside to just shine on one thing that you probably didn't notice before, or that wasn't there before, to give it a totally new, put that in a new light. So I wanted there to be moments where you're just hearing nothing but like orchestra and vocals. I wanted there to be moments where it's really focused on the electronic side. I wanted to have times where it's literally just a vocal. Like, I wanted to leave room for everything so you can really, truly appreciate everything that's going on at the same time sometimes.
Yeah, was there a lot of collaboration? So you have Will Hunt, who is really kind of behind the rhythm, and you have David Campbell, who is running the orchestra, basically.
Right.
Were they constantly in a room together with their heads pressed together?
No. It was all file sharing. It was the craziest, techiest, funniest Dropbox experience, because it was like, Will is here, Will's in Texas, Dave is in LA, and I'm here in New York. We really couldn't be farther apart on the map, just big triangle. And basically, they all started with I'm listening to songs, and started with 20 songs, and we started whittling it down to what was happening. But I would start by taking the old master session. I've got a little studio in my house. I'm an engineer for all of our demos and my little solo stuff, but it gets overwhelming in a project like this. I would never be the engineer all by myself, but I can do it in my house. Anyway, so I've got the master sessions for everything we've done. I'd start by going through that and pulling everything away, pulling out the guitars, pulling out the drums, just nothing but strings and programming and voice, and going, okay, here's our starting point of what we had. Where can we take this? And then I would start by making some ideas or whatever, just creating that skeletal version, and then upload that for them to hear. And then Will maybe would take it and go, oh, cool, I just did a basic run of what I think would feel cool programming over this whole thing. And by the way, I thought it'd be cooler if the bridge was doubled and it was instrumental at first and the stuff comes in. So I did that. And then we'd hear that. Ooh. And I go, okay. And then I'd change 2 more things. And then David would chime in with some crazy sketched out, with samples orchestra thing, this whole piece on top of the piece, and it would take it to some other place, and then we'd have that, and we'd edit that, and we'd just back and forth for many months, until we finally all okay, this is it, these are the arrangements, let's go record it.
And at that point, did you all assemble
yes.
in
Then
one
we were
room?
together. Yeah.
Okay.
We got together at the beginning before all that file sharing started happening, just Will and David and I at my house, and listened through the songs that we'd whittled down to 17 or 20, and started just talking about each one, listen through each one, have a conversation about ideas.
Right.
And then it went into crazy land of internet, and then we got together and recorded it. Yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of the orchestra, which is a phenomenal sounding body on this record, and so kind of forceful and clear.
Thanks.
There is a certain, I guess, a ceding of control in some ways when you have a conductor, an orchestrator like that. I mean, was there ever any concern on your part? I mean, I know you've worked with David Campbell before, so you guys have a working relationship in leading up to this. But in terms of, are there any moments where you're thinking to yourself, I don't know if I would go that way, but he has such control of the orchestra.
That's what's cool about David. He doesn't make it I can't approach him. I can't tell him what I really think or what I really want. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I chopped out lots of stuff that he did, and would send it back and be like, I like it better like this. Sorry.
Yeah.
But then he loves that. It's more let me just do everything, and then you show me what you love, and we'll go from there. It was very collaborative. And I would have ideas too that I would map out like with my crappy fake strings pad on my keyboard or whatever, and send them be like, hey, what about this? Like at the beginning of the album, like where it's kind of rooted in some old, very early Evanescence stuff. And I had it in my head that like, oh, this could build from nothing, and it's just cool. It's cool the way that, and he would hear that and appreciate that and not be like, you don't know what you're doing. Which he could totally do, and I'd be like, okay, you're right. But yeah, this means a lot to me, and he recognizes that too. Like, this is Evanescence. Like, you tell me what you want too. Like, very, very collaborative.
Right, and the musicians in the room. I think if I was, reading about the making of the record, coming into it, I know that a lot of them sort of realized what they were working on, like the moment that they got there on the first day.
Yeah, that's right.
And so was there a period, obviously these are extremely talented and skilled, experienced musicians.
Yes.
But was there a little bit of a grace period of trying to get the sound out of these players that you heard in your head? That maybe they were kind of coming from a different place and you needed to sort of move them
well,
over
I think
here?
that's a part of any recording process, even with my own voice, is like you get in there and you start tracking and it's like, okay, and that's why you need a producer, honestly, like to hone in somebody with like a big picture vision, and then you're working on it, like somebody to say, hey, try this, and, oh, we're all working on it together. So yeah, we were in that studio for 3 solid days, just focused only on the orchestra, looking at the score, like really focusing on each part and totally making some things better than the first time that it came out. I mean, that was really a big part of David's job.
Right.
But those were really, really top level musicians who came in there and right away, like, were giving me goosebumps. So it was also just a pleasure to listen, and it was, I always would feel like, I hope I don't miss something by not being in the control booth, but I really want to go in the live room right now. And like every once in a while, just for a few minutes, like just for one take, go sit in the live room where you can't hear anything but what they're doing. You can't hear the context, but just to hear the power of what it sounds like in the room. I'm so excited to go on tour like that. It's not the same players, obviously. It will be in Nashville, but to go on tour with those live, real orchestra instruments, it's a completely different thing to play music live like that than
Absolutely.
It is to have so much going on, and we're pretty rehearsed, and like there's a big loud click in my ear and a lot of stuff going on, and it's like, it's what it is.
Does that sort of gradually, does the tour, I mean, you're not on it yet, but will the tour sort of evolve as you go night to night, or is this the thing where like you get out there on the first show and everyone knows their parts and it is sort of etched in stone? Or do you feel like, a month into the tour, you will still be making changes, tweaking this part, maybe moving that up or down? I mean, is this an organic thing as you go?
The parts, by nature, they're written. They have to be sent to the musicians to learn.
They're reading them there, yeah.
Right. But with what we do, we're taking out a conductor, and she'll be, practicing with them every day before every show. It's going to be a different group in each place.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah.
So the musicians are not, like, on the tour.
No.
You are sort of meeting them as you get to each city.
Yes. So every show is a new experience.
Of modern rock.
It's a little bit scary.
Yeah, I would imagine. For them as much as
because
you
they can never get comfortable. They get one chance.
Right.
And we can learn things as we go, but we're going to be with a new group every night, so there's just variables.
Right.
But I think it will grow in terms of just learning what we're aiming for, and hopefully just like feeling totally comfortable in that. I think there's going to be a new nakedness, like where anything could happen, because there's a lot of moments that there is no click, there's a conductor, and we're all looking at each other and really being expressive in the moment and going for it. And some nights you feel different than other nights, and it's just going to be a different show. I'm really looking forward to that. It's a challenge. It really is. But it's a beautiful one, because that's the way music feels to me when I'm really at my most comfortable place, like when I'm alone by myself, like at the piano, like that's how it's supposed to flow, know?
Yeah.
It's going to feel really good to have the ability to do that live. It's also a scary challenge, but like I'm excited for it. I'm ready.
Yeah. Well, some of it is that these songs are so familiar to you and to the people listening, and probably to some of the orchestra members, a lot of the orchestra members too, I'd imagine. So the last Evanescence record came out, I think it was 6 years ago, 2011. Was there, in that time between then and now, did you ever sort of flirt with the idea of writing totally new material for this kind of project, or was it always about reimagining these songs from the catalog?
Well, I haven't been thinking about this for that long. Like, it's something that definitely came up over the last year or two. But like I was saying earlier, I'm kind of just, I need to be open to anything. And I need to be able to just change my mind creatively and try something totally different and just have that be okay. Because I feel like when you're passionate about something, when you're really doing something just because it feels right, that's when I feel like it makes sense and I'm doing my best work. Not when it feels like, okay, I have a plan. I've had a plan for years. I'm finally going to do this plan. Or like, people expect this certain thing out of me, so I'm going to give them what they want. I hate that. That's the worst. So hard. Don't ever tell me what you want. It's never going to happen. And I don't mean to be that way. I just can't. It's got to come from a pure place, or I don't believe myself and I get grossed out.
There must be some kind of element of that when you're working with an orchestra like this, because so much of the music, like you said, it's written there on the page. These arrangements really have to be played just so every night.
Yeah.
So there is got to be a certain element of not preparedness, but there's some element of that is not changing. You're not going to improvise on stage.
Right.
Is that something that you're comfortable with?
I feel fairly comfortable with that. I feel like we pretty much do that. We as a band now. Great band. They're all really, really talented musicians. They're all really creative and really versatile. They're all fast learners. So we're at a place now where we can get together at soundcheck and make a decision about something we're going to do that night that we haven't done before, and change a song. We've done that a lot on the last couple of tours, which is really fun. But for the most part, then we lock in and work on executing that for the next few shows at least. So there's always a plan in place, not like, oh, what's he going to do? Which me for 8 bars, and you never know. There's kind of always some kind of plan that we made at least that morning. Yeah. So I feel good about that.
And tell me a little bit about, so there are 2 new songs on this record, Imperfection and High Low. Were those, did you know that you wanted to get a couple of new compositions on the record when you started out?
Yeah, that's the other point of that word synthesis, is about like past and present.
Yeah.
So it's revisiting songs like My Immortal, but in a place of now, and also tying the new music into it and creating something that all flows together as one thing in this moment, but it's actually going back in time into the future and all of that. So I knew I wanted new music to be a part of it.
And were you were confident that the new music that you were writing for this would have that synthesis with the older Evanescence songs? In terms of
it has to go with
the format of this project.
Totally.
Yeah, and you sort of wrote them with that kind of in mind.
Well,
I'm writing this for orchestra.
Yes, High Low already existed. Unfinished. So it was, any song comes from like a chord progression and a melody. You can take anything, you put that anywhere. But High Low was already a song that lived in electronica land, but I didn't clue into the orchestra idea until this. And we were in the beginning of this project and I was like, oh, that's what's missing. Like that beautiful drama, that feeling. That's what's missing from the music bed from before. So then the song was able to be completed. And for Imperfection, that was a big challenge because I had to think of something that, first of all, could be the single on top of like my entire career of my favorite songs. Okay, impossible. And then also like represent what I'm into now. What I like musically now is different than what I liked when we first started out.
Right.
It has to be now, but it also has to be like classic Evanescence to go with all these classic Evanescence songs. So it just needed to be a lot of things at the same time, which was a big challenge for me, and it took a minute to write it. We finally got there. And I hear it like there's a big contrast between the verses and the choruses. Like the verses are this new place, this new attitude, and it's sort of like the next step from some of the attitude on the last album. And then the chorus is like explode into this big epic long notes drama of like classic Evanescence stuff. And then the bridge just is crazy. So it's cool to me because I was like, okay, I got it. Like 2 extremes going together. This is it. But then that created a whole new challenge of like, well, how do I make lyrics that fit both of those things, like attitude and greatest sorrow. So hard, like two totally different things. So lyrics then took another whole long time, but finally finished.
Seems
them
like right in your strike zone though. Those two emotions sort of coming together in songwriting.
Thanks.
So before I let you go and you do something for us.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, no, I was not speaking about anything specifically. It could be anything that I'm talking about. We're gonna do laps around the room. I wanted to ask you about Steinway. We are here at Steinway and Sons, and you, of course, are a wonderful piano player and have been for many years. I'm wondering what your relationship is, with this piano. So I wanted to preface that by saying I saw this great Instagram post that you did where you visited the Steinway factory, which is in Long Island City here in New York, and I was wondering as you went in there, you were selecting a piano that you were going to take on this tour. What are you looking for in a piano when you go to the Steinway factory?
It's
every Steinway is a great piano.
It's an interesting thing because they are all different. They really are. And this exact piano is a Model D, right? It's the big one. Yeah, there's a D right there. That means really huge.
Yeah. I'm glad you saw that D.
This is the piano that I played. Well, this is the same model of piano that I played in the studio. Mm-hmm. And the reason we went for that piano was because this specific project, taking it to this dark classical place, at least for where the piano lives for the most part on this album, that's this, okay? Like that rattling, deep, beautiful, bigger than anything you can feel, low end.
Yeah.
And also the beauty of how it cuts through in the rest of the piano. And I like all kinds of pianos, and I play Baldwin a lot. I play a lot of different brands for different reasons. This album I loved this piano for this album. It had the space for it. We don't have space for all that sound on a typical Evanescence song with all the big low-endy guitars and electric bass and everything else that's going on.
Right.
It's actually... It wouldn't make a ton of sense necessarily to have all that. There's no room for it. It's just going to get EQ'd out in the end anyway.
Right.
So this was a place where I was okay, we're going to use this moment to show it. So let's go Steinway. And then, obsessed over that in the studio and just really fell in love with it. And then when we were talking about the tour and what piano we should take out and whatever, I was I know that it's a long shot. Because they're the most prestigious piano company in the world. But what if could we just maybe ask and tell them I'll tweet a whole lot and could they please let me use a piano on tour because it's perfect. It would just be perfect.
Yeah.
And they said yes. And I've had several experiences like that on this record where I didn't expect to hear a yes, and I heard a yes, and just felt so awesome. It's so cool to feel respect from someone else that you admire, in a field that you really admire. And I feel a hack as a piano player, at least when I compare myself to the kind of people that come and practice in this place. I practiced at this piano last week, and they've been kind enough to let me come up here and use one of these practice rooms at different times in the past couple of weeks to just have a quiet place to focus, because this tour is actually going to demand more of me as a piano player.
Yeah.
It's good to have that quiet. But as I'm playing, I'm hearing people down the hall doing stuff that I couldn't do. Just very beautiful, complex, music that I admire and respect very much. So I feel very humbled and honored that Steinway is willing to be a part of this. I feel extra humbled and honored that we can be here doing this in this space.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a big honor. And go to the factory was cool. What speaks to me in a piano, like I said, is different for everything. But I've never experienced seeing where and how pianos are really made like that. They said meet us at the factory, and I thought that was a cool New York word for, this is where we do our business, but it's the old factory that we don't use as a factory anymore. It was really the factory. And there's all these craftsmen sanding the legs and with the goggles, and they're cutting the hammers, all the chairs that you're sitting on. That fabric is the same fabric that they use in the hammers in here.
Right.
Just all these really cool, interesting things.
This is like a sitting piano. If everyone just like bounces up and down
Yeah.
on their chairs.
That's why you can't have drinks in here. Don't spill anything. So it's all been a really beautiful educational experience so far with all of it, and I'm looking forward to learning more.
Yeah. Well, I think, I'm not saying what is going to happen next. I will just find an awkward way to transition to the next portion of our evening.
I'll take it away.
Okay.
Thank you for your questions. That was nice. Thank you guys for being patient, hanging out so long. I'm sitting here. There's a beautiful piano. I should probably play a song. Today is the 11th anniversary of the Open Door. So I've been trying to decide whether it'd be cool to play a song that you just heard or something that you didn't hear, but it should be the Open Door. Anyway, I kind of camped out on like something that you didn't hear.
Should it let you torture me?
again for coming. I really appreciate it. It's like our little one moment to hear it all. One time through before I go on.
Is it weird to sit in a room full of people and watch them listen to your
It was
album?
nice.
Yeah?
Yeah. I always feel like I'm in the hot seat. But I
Yeah.
got to sit in the back and watch everybody else.
Have you been through album listening, like parties or things for your other albums?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does it get any easier
But I don't
or
always,
harder?
I haven't always sat in. Like, it's like, oh, I'm waiting somewhere else. And then I come in and we talk about it. This is more like, I want to just actually sit there and listen, together.
And this was, as you mentioned earlier, this was actually not the mix that you
that was the 5.1. It's like the surround sound mix. We have like surround sound speakers built in this awesome room. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then I realized as it started, I was like, oh, I haven't actually heard this mix yet. We worked so hard on like the stereo mix. I'm like I have a lot of notes. I'm very demanding.
Yeah.
But the 5.1, like I was like, okay, we got stereo, like do that. But it's actually different. So I was sitting there going, oh man, there's stuff you're not hearing. But that's okay.
Right. You've probably never been to an Evanescence concert when not on the stage.
Never.
That would be difficult.
Never. That is something I would really, really like to do.
It would be an incredible accomplishment. I've got to say, not musicians have ever pulled that off.
I know, it's hard. It's hard to know what to fix.
Yeah,
I just got to go up there and do my best. Hopefully it's cool. Check it out on YouTube.
Well, thank you so much
for
playing that beautiful song.
Thanks.
On this incredible piano.
Yeah, it's so good.
That you will be, maybe not this one.
Slightly smaller to fit with all those musicians on stage for live, but it's a Steinway.
Right, and when you take it out, this is like renting a car where they sort of look around, like, let's look for any dings.
Yeah, probably.
So that when you bring it back, we know what to charge you.
It better be in tip-top shape or credit cards coming out.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think so, probably.
Well, guys, thank you, everyone, so much for coming and joining. It's Amy Lee.